Daly, first speaker in this section.
Thanks, Ceann Comhairle. I'd like to share with Deputies Boyd Barrett, Wallace, Donnelly and Higgins.
Thank you.
Thank you.
4 minutes each, Deputy.
Thanks, Ceann Comhairle. And I have to say that as a committed socialist, I can assure Minister Noonan that contrary to his earlier assertion that this tax on the family home is a tax on capital assets or some form of Marxist ideology, it certainly isn't. The idea that a home which people have spent a lifetime paying for, or in other instances to which they are shackled for another 20 or 30 years, is some form of asset to be sweated from, I have to say, is a total outrage which has struck fear into the hearts of residents the length and breadth of this country. And I think it's not really good enough for backbenchers to wax lyrical and voice their concerns in a weak-kneed manner. This government needs to get real. Homes for many people now in our state are a liability, which in many instances people would get rid of if they could, but they wouldn't even realise a fraction of what they paid for in the first place. The idea that council tenants and tenants of voluntary housing bodies are going to be foisted by an extra debt burden is absolutely abhorrent. The idea that those in mortgage arrears who can't make ends meet anyway, that the solution to their problems is foisting another debt on them is outrageous. And to add on to that, those afflicted with pyrite, whose homes are valueless, that we get a sop, that their situation will be looked at in the Finance Act. Well, that's just not good enough, because what sort of tax relief are they going to be given? Who deems that? Who deems the level of certifiable level of pyritic heave? Who pays for the testing? And so on. And apart from all of those people who are in dire economic straits anyway, to add insult to injury, people who are poor can have the privilege of paying extra. That this government deigns that the poor can pay more, and they can pay more, and their families can pay more when they're dead. It is, in fact, one of the most draconian pieces of legislation that has ever been put before this House. And people often talk and exaggerate and talk about taking food out of the mouths of families or out of the mouths of children. Literally, that is what this legislation proposes, because what this minister is proposing, unlike any predecessor, is to forcibly put his paw into the pockets and into the wage packets of workers and take from them monies which they would otherwise spend on electricity, on food and so on. And the idea that you can do this without provoking a reaction, I have to say, is an absolute fallacy, because you've clearly chosen to wage war, and it will be met with outright resistance. In my opinion, this property tax, which is a home tax, will be the match thrown into the dynamite factory of Irish society, because you let the cat out of the bag, Minister, and expose the backdrop. That the reason why you're doing it is not to improve our situation, but is to pay for the private debts of bankers and bondholders and the deficit in this state. And the idea that taking money from people will only, as you said, have a small adverse effect on economic performance is rubbish. In actual fact, next year you don't propose to take a half year from people, you propose to take a year and a half's property tax. You asked where is our alternative. In 20 seconds, our alternative was that you would even enforce the existing rate of corporation tax, the existing one. Don't even increase it. You get $4 billion, which is the equivalent of 8 years' homes tax. People realise this is nothing more than daylight robbery, and they will strenuously resist this measure.
And I'll call Deputy Richard Boyd Barrett.